like late show topics since you're kind of later on?
No. Well, actually, I kind of do anything. I mean, a lot of times I talk about politics, but in the past I've just had, where people could call in and pretty much just bring up any kind of subject that they want, and we could talk about that. So, I mean, if somebody wanted to call up and talk about Martians, I wouldn't mind talking about that. I think that's kind of fun, I've always liked watching science fiction movies.
Yeah, I noticed you have a Star Wars shirt.
Yes, yeah. I'm a big Star Wars fan.
Oh. My son Drew loves Star Wars too. He's a huge Star Wars fan. I think there's a Star Wars event coming out this summer. Is that right?
Yeah, well, this coming Friday is going to be Force Friday at Walmart, at every Walmart in the nation, where basically all the new Star Wars stuff that's coming out, they're going to pretty much just like open it up and release all of it. And StarWars.com is doing a big live stream for Force Friday, where it's just going to be this big Star Wars event that millions of people could tune into from all over the world, and they'll be live up on YouTube, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I hope the Force is with you on Friday.
Yeah, me too. Well, the Force is always with me, so I'm a lucky guy because of that.
Nice. I'm glad you're in tune with your with the Force. So I sent you some questions, and I would hate to take time to type up questions and not actually ask you the questions. And so the first question was, how long have you lived in Pocatello?
Well, I've lived in Pocatello for about 23 years. I'm 25, and I spent 2 years of my life serving a mission for my church. So, yeah, about 23 years out of the 25 years I've been alive, I've been here. So, I'm native to Pocatello.
Okay, so since you're native to Pocatello, what high school did you go to?
I went to Century High School and did a lot of fun stuff there. I mean, I really enjoyed high school. I was in the drama department in high school and did all kinds of plays. I was in the art program there, so I did a lot of painting and drawing, and yeah, I just, I enjoyed high school. Made a lot of friends and got good grades too. So that's what's important, right?
As far as high school goes, I didn't get good grades. I don't know if I had very many real friends, so I'll take your word for it about that. But good for you. So you're attending ISU, is that right? Are you attending ISU?
Yeah. I'm a student at Idaho State University.
What year are you in?
I'm actually just in my second year, so I'm like a sophomore, basically. But I've been majoring in mass communications at Idaho State University.
Oh, so doing shows like this you see this as your future, possibly?
Yes, yeah. I actually love broadcasting, and I'd love to do it as a career, to either, broadcast on television or even do radio. I'd love to work at a local radio station. That would be awesome.
So now, have you talked with any, this isn't part of the questions, but have you talked to Neil Larson or any of the local radio? Jerry Miller, he's a ISU guy, right? Mm-hmm. Jerry's super cool. Love Jerry Miller.
Yeah, I've spoken with Neil Larson. I actually don't know Jerry Miller. I probably should get to know him. Yeah.
You don't know the voice of the Bengals? Are you serious? How do you get? Oh man.
I guess that's pretty sad that I'm an ISU student and don't know the voice of the Bengals. I know kind of the person that's the head of the mass communication department, and I know that she does she's kind of in charge of everything, the broadcasting and even the broadcasting stuff they do on TV as well, because they have a really cool kind of like mock television studio at Idaho State University. Like, it's really awesome. Like, it looks like a real newsroom when you go in there at ISU. I don't know if you've seen that before.
I have not.
Yeah, it's in the performing arts building downstairs.
Okay.
And it's a really cool looking studio they have in there. It's impressive.
One of the other things that I do is I'm a editor in a free speech newspaper called the Pocatello State Journal. And one of the other editors has kind of encouraged me to go down to where you're talking about and try to recruit some students to participate in free speech and, make that First Amendment real for them. And to get out there and publish things and write things and learn things and to go experience. And I think that's one of the great things about the Pocatello State Journal is it gives us that opportunity to write and let our voices be heard. And that's a good thing about that public access Channel 64 too, is it gives us a forum to speak, to get those things that you care about. Like for me, like I think anyone who's ever watched anything that I do, they know that I like beaver. Yeah. And they know that I care about the keystone species and that I care about our natural world and our environment, and I think it's super, super important. I want my kids and grandkids to be able to enjoy a lot of the things that I've enjoyed in life, and beaver, the keystone species, can make that possible for free, because beavers, you've probably heard the saying, busy as a beaver. They are busy, and they do the work for free. I took a group of Cub Scouts out last night. We went for a walk along Taysom Park along the Portneuf River, and we did a little beaver ecology there, and it's easy to show them that beaver do a lot of the same work that like the Pocatello City roads do along the Portneuf River, but the beaver, they don't have a salary. You don't have to have insurance or benefits for them. There is no beaver retirement. And they do it all for free. And it was great because the boys, they all got to see that and plus blow on their whistles and run around and be little boys. And it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
All right, so you're majoring in mass communication. Oh, so now my son Drew, he tells me that you're funny. And so I'm just going to ask you, where do you get your sense of humor from, Ben? Because I know you make Drew laugh a lot.
Well, I'm sure it runs in the family because I think my whole family is hilarious, to tell you the truth. Gregersons. Yeah? A lot of my humor just kind of happens at the moment. Somebody will be talking about something and then almost just like this brilliant, hilarious thought comes to my mind, that's relevant to what the person is saying. So then I say it. And then everyone starts laughing. So, like at church, in my ward, the teacher asked everyone, like something they used to be able to do as a kid, but they're not good at it anymore, But, just like almost like a nostalgic thing. So all these people were like talking about how they used to be good at hula hoops and all this stuff, And I just brought up how I was this Pokemon collector, that I was just this awesome Pokemon collector, and that I was the best and all this. I really kind of like puffed myself up, But people just started laughing, because it was hilarious, because nobody was talking about
Pokemon.
Yeah, trading cards. Yeah, it was all hula hoops, or I used to be able to roll on my belly and stuff like that, so. I don't know, it just kind of lit up the room. And not just that, Pokemon is something that everyone my age got into. I mean, that was a big fad, you know, back in the 90s in grade school. In fact, they even had to ban them from my school that they were so...
At Century?
No. At Bonneville, I went to Bonneville Elementary School. So back in...
And that's closed now.
Yeah, it is closed now. And it closed after I attended. It was like 2 years after I was done
So
going
you
to
shut it
Bonneville.
down?
I guess so.
Lasted about 80 years, and Ben Gregersen came in, and that was it.
Yeah, well, they probably thought we'll never get a better student than Ben Gregersen, so we might as well not continue.
You might as well retire the building now. It's not going to get any better than this.
Yeah, this is, you know, this is
right.
the best it gets. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, okay, so you think you get your sense of humor from your family. Sounds like it's pretty unscripted, not something that you have to work on. Why is it important to have a sense of humor?
Well, I think that it actually keeps life fun from getting too serious and too, you know, I think when you get too serious, I think life just kind of loses something, you know, when you don't know how to have fun. So I think humor and things like that, they just lighten things up.
For sure. Now, let's see. What's the funniest thing that ever happened to you?
Well, I guess there's a lot of stories, I guess, that come to mind. A lot of them, you know, when I was younger, like, you know, back before high school days, I'm talking like middle school, grade school, I used to be pretty mischievous.
Oh, really?
Yes, but I never,
Yes.
but I was always known as the good kid, so I never got caught. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I used
this
to.
doesn't surprise me.
I used to pull a lot of pranks. I mean, there was
Premeditated?
Yeah, well, yeah, they were
you
planned.
thought about it. All right.
I mean, I don't know. I guess they were kind of at the spur of the moment a little bit, you know. Because, like, I remember, like, in middle school when they had us dissecting frogs, I actually kept one of those frogs we dissected. We were supposed to throw them away, but I kept one, and I put it in the mailbox in the principal's office. Come to find out, the principal was on vacation, so
Did it rot?
Yeah, he was gone for a couple weeks, and man, that office just smelled terrible for 3 weeks. And I remember going in the office, and I was like, man, it just stinks terrible in here, you know, to the ladies working in there, and they're like, yeah, we can't figure out what it is, you know.
Did they ever figure out that you
No.
got the frog? And you didn't feel like any remorse or guilt for making those poor women suffer through the rot? I mean, when flesh rots, whether it's a frog, a hawk, a deer, a skunk, I mean, the skunk probably stinks a little more than most, but rotting flesh is a horrid experience. And you felt
Not at the time.
Did you laugh every day?
Yeah.
You smelled it? You could smell humor at that moment.
Yes.
And it wasn't flatulence either.
No. So, you know, yeah, I did stuff like that. I'll admit it.
That's funny.
Yeah, so.
That's a good one. I didn't even, because if you asked me that question, I couldn't come up. Well, I thought of something, but it wasn't nearly that good. So what kind of music do you like?
I like rock music. You know, in fact, I play the bass guitar. My family, we used to have kind of like a family rock band with my dad and my 2 brothers.
Oh.
And it was pretty awesome. We had that going for a number of years. You know, we played at weddings and different events, and it was fun. You know, it was just kind of like the Gregersen band.
So did you play Here I Am, Rock You Like a Hurricane at a wedding?
Yeah, we played, you know, I think we did play that. We did play that song. I don't know if we played it at a wedding. It's too long ago, but we played a lot of different songs. We did some covers. And then my dad and my brother wrote some songs, too, that we did. And, yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I could still play the bass guitar. I've actually got a Hagstrom bass guitar, a real nice one that I bought at Pond One down there last summer. So, yeah, I don't know, rock, that's what I'm into. I mean, I like other music too, except for I'm not a fan of rap music. I just never got into it. Just something about it, I don't know. I don't know, maybe I just don't think the singing is that great in rap music. And just, I don't know, the music isn't necessarily real all the time either. Because it's kind of like a lot of this fake stuff. Except a lot of the music now is kind of, you don't really hear real instruments. So I find that kind of sad. But
There's a band that I listened to at Riverfest. They're from Bozeman. They're called Cure for the Common, and their genre is electro, thunder, funk. And they get down big time. And I would say you'd have to call they rap. I would say that they do rap, because they're going super fast when they're singing.
oh, awesome.
And it really is awesome. It's like grooving.
I want to make a correction here. There is some rap that I've liked. Like I liked it in Linkin Park when they kind of threw in kind of a mix of rap in there with their rock music. Because I remember they were like banging their, you know, they're doing the rock and roll thing, but then they had their rapper in there too, and that was kind of fresh. Because you don't see that very often. Like they utilized it in a way that I liked it.
So you're thinking rap is kind of rapped out. It's not really fresh anymore, and so it's lost its luster a little bit.
Well, yeah, I think that it got so big in the 90s and 2000s, and I don't know, I was never that big into it to begin with, so maybe I'm not the best person to say if it's dead or not. But
Well, I don't know, Ben, but you don't see Eminem really producing much fresh stuff anymore, and maybe it is past its time. I mean, and there are issues with a lot of what they call gangster rap.
oh yeah,
And there is, like you said, humor's great because we live in a world that can be less than great. There are places where it's extremely violent. In the last week, I think I've read about at least four police officers who've been shot and murdered. You know, those are fathers.
I know.
And, you know, there are kids who are going to not have dads. And, you know, is it because of gangster rap? No, I don't think so. But is it because we live in a violent world and there's, like, dysfunction in our world? I would think so. I think that there are some societal issues.
Oh, there are. And one thing to keep in mind, too, is I do feel that what's happening with policing here is kind of reminiscent to the cop hate you had back in the 60s. You know, I didn't live in the 60s, but I've read about it. My father's told me about it. But there was kind of a movement against cops back then where there were bombings against police officers and you know, all kinds of things that weren't, you know, they weren't good. And, you know, from what I've heard, there's kind of a swell of support for local policing in this country, because a lot of these efforts against cops was really a way of demonizing the cops and making them the bad guys, because there's people in this country that they've got the intention of asserting kind of federal control over local policing, and they know that that's something that, that's not going to happen unless they could get the public thinking that there's a serious problem with local law enforcement.
Well, that's what's nice about a show. There's different ideas and opinions, and I definitely think that, like I told my son, he gets pretty upset about things that are going in the Middle East. And
Yeah.
I told him I don't live in the Middle East, and if I did, I'd be pretty upset about things right now if I lived in certain spots in the Middle East. However, in Pocatello, I think there's some police issues that definitely should be talked about that aren't being talked about enough.
Oh, yeah.
I think I went and protested last week. I used my First Amendment rights, and I carried the sign and everything, and I walked down 4th Street by the Omni building because I think the IRS, who has been requested with the freedom by the Idaho State Journal to release the video footage of the July 10th incident where Officer Westfall took his elbow and slammed it down on a citizen, someone who has their civil rights. It's a violation of our, when you violate citizens, I think that's a huge deal.
Oh, it is.
I think if that happened in Baltimore, Ferguson, New York, I think there would have been rioting. But in Pocatello, is it okay to beat citizens?
Oh,
I mean,
no.
I haven't heard anything from the city council. I haven't heard anything from the mayor. I have heard something where, it has to do with city employees, so everyone's quiet about it.
Well, here's what you make a good point. Here's what I think about that issue, is I think that we need to, there's two things I think we need to do. I think that most cops, there are bad eggs, like you mentioned, but I think in general the majority of cops are good people.
Well,
like you said,
they're
fathers, most of them are good. But you do have the bad eggs in there.
I'm not calling anyone here, I'm not saying they're bad eggs.
I know.
When I went and protested, I'm not protesting on one side or the other. I'm protesting on the side of transparency and Freedom of Information Act. I'm not the judge of the officers and their actions. I'm not that guy. But I am the guy who wants transparency.
Well, and I want transparency too, and I think if that video exists, that the public does have a right to see it. I do believe that. Why? I don't know, why keep that from the public,
Why not be transparent?
Well, it's true. I think
Why
sometimes...
shouldn't we have a transparent government?
Yeah, well, I think sometimes the government thinks that we can't handle some of these things. I think they look at us that way, and I think that that's wrong.
Right.
So I do think transparency is important. Now, the second thing I was going to say is part of supporting local police is educating them. I think our local police do need to be educated. There needs to be more education as far as constitutional principles and rights and things like that. That way, because they know what the document says and they know how policing applies to the Constitution, they have a better idea of where their boundaries are. And, you're not going to see as many, potential abuses, such as what you mentioned, the rights of that one person that was possibly violated in that video. You're not going to be seeing as many as those kinds of things because they're grounded in the Constitution more. I believe in I guess constitutional policing in this country, police officers and sheriffs that exist to protect us, but also their duty is to defend the Constitution as well.
And doesn't that, to me, if you're protecting the Constitution, then you are protecting the citizens.
Well, exactly.
Because if you defend the Constitutions, then you're defending our rights. When you violate the Constitution, you violate us.
Yeah.
Now, here's something I'll ask you this. I went to the city council a couple weeks ago and asked them to put body cameras on our officers. I feel like if you can have guns, bullets, tasers, Kevlar, all of these things that are meant to protect the officers, which I want them protected. I think cameras can also protect them.
Oh, yeah.
And Alexander Hamilton said, if men were angels, we wouldn't need government. And I'd say the same thing about policemen. They are people. They're humans. They're not angels. They need government. And right now, I don't see anything around Pocatello where there's any policing of the police, so to speak. And so I'm an advocate of body cameras. What do you think about that?
Oh, I support the idea of body cameras. In fact, all these riots, really, that you've had in Ferguson and some of these other places, a lot of that was based on a lot of, I don't know, false information. I mean, a lot of that...
No information.
Well, no
Yeah,
information.
Yeah, you can't see anything.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just from investigations and stuff they've done, they've determined that a lot of the stuff people are freaking out about and going crazy about, you know, isn't necessarily true. Now, if there were body cameras, would the spreading of any kind of false information or falsehoods or things like that that could get people riled up against police, would that really be happening as much if there were videos that showed exactly what happened?
Right, there's transparency. And so then you can't have this dissemination of information where, you know, people will just twist truths and stuff where when it's on the camera, it's like with the IRS thing. Let's see what started it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see why this guy was arrested for resisting, and let's see why did you ask to search him? Where's the knife? He didn't have a knife after you searched him. Why did you feel the need to ask, where do you have a knife? And why do you feel like you have the right to search him, you know, in the first place?
Yeah.
You know, you have to have just cause to search people. Mm-hmm. Isn't that the Fourth Amendment?
Yeah, it is. And I think that, you know, we've all heard that statement, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I think the same thing applies to video, you know, because video, I mean, that's just a moving picture, but if you have this stuff on video, you know, we're going to know exactly what happened, you know, and you know, I think there's less chances of groups like Black Lives Matter, you know, causing riots, you know, in different communities.
Why are there no White Lives Matter groups around here? Well, I mean,
yeah,
don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I don't know. I do know this. I was talking about federalization earlier, and Al Sharpton, I don't know if you know him.
I don't know him personally.
He's well.
We're at our half hour.
Oh, well.
I know. So we're gonna have to wrap up.
Okay.
And so we're wrapping up, and we want to just thanks for your time, Ben Gregersen. Pocatello, let's talk about something, and Ben, we'll probably talk later because I think we have unfinished business.
Yeah, I think so too. So I'm very thankful actually that you invited me on this program and we were able to talk about some things, because I think that these are important issues, not only for, you know, the nation, but for our community as well. So.
Oh yeah, that's what's the most important thing, Ben, is Pocatello.
Yeah.
That's where we live.
Yeah.
It's where we have power to change things.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we could change things on the local level, you know, I do. I agree with that. The local level is the most important because that's where we are, you know.
Right.
And I absolutely believe that. So.